Welcome back to another Edison deck profile. Today we have probably my favorite Edison deck. I've also won a couple mats with it and some locals. It's obviously one of the top decks in my opinion, at least. I think most people would agree that this is probably somewhere in like the top 4 Edison decks. Vayu Turbo. So let's get into the list. We have 2 Armageddon Knight. For the Black Wings we have Gale, 3 Sirocco, and 3 Vayu. Next we have 2 Caius, a Card Trooper, a Dark Armed, 2 Dark Greffer, Gores, Necrogardna, Plague Spreader Zombie, and then we also have 3 Raikou, 1 Hamster, 1 Spirit Reaper. And let's get into the spells. Very monster heavy deck. I believe it's 23 monsters. For the spells we have Alert, Brain Control, Burial from a Different Dimension, Charge of the Light Brigade, Heavy Storm and MST, and Rhoda. And for the traps, 2 Bottomless Trap Hole, 2 Dimensional Prison, and a Mirror Force, 2 Royal Oppression, Solemn Judgment, Torrent, Trap Dust Shoot. A lot of the traps you see in every deck. Extra deck. Alright, we have a Chimera Tech. And for the Vayu cards, we have 2 Armed Wing, 2 Armor Master, and a Silver Wind. The more generic stuff, we have Armory Arm, Cadister, Bryonic, and Goyo, Black Rose, Colossal, and then we also have Dark End, Stardust, and Thought Ruler. And for the sideboard, the exciting stuff. 2 Cyber Dragon, 2 DD Crow, 2 Fossil Dyna, a Mind Control, a Compulse, 2 Deck Dev, 2 Dust, 2 Polling, and a Starlight Road. Alright, let's get into why I chose to play or not play certain cards. Start with the main board. So, this is pretty standard. What I chose not to run is Chaos Sorcerer for a couple of reasons. I think it's a very good card. I think you can totally run Chaos Sorcerer in this deck. But I'm maining 2 Royal Oppressions, so those slightly conflict. But also, I don't like opening a bunch of cards I can't do anything with immediately. It's fine to have some of those in your deck, but if you have a lot of cards that don't do anything on turn 1, turn 1's pretty important. So if you don't have anything to do on turn 1 and your opponent just goes off, you're really far behind. So I don't like its interaction with maining 2 oppressions. If you main 1 oppression, I think you can totally play a Chaos Sorcerer. It's probably worth it, honestly, but that's why I chose not to. Also, I played the Necrogardna. I think this is getting more popular, but yeah, it's another Rhoda target. It's another Armageddon Knight target. It's another Dark Greffer target. And then if you draw it with a Dark Greffer, it can be really good. Because a lot of times you don't actually go for the Sirocco Vayu play with Dark Greffer unless you have the other one. So if you draw a Vayu, yes, you will oftentimes activate Dark Greffer, send the Vayu to send the Sirocco, but sometimes you'll have to just pitch another Dark, right? Like Plague or Necrogardna, or sometimes just a Armageddon Knight if you really have to. In those cases, you're not going to send a random Vayu and Sirocco generally. One copy of them doesn't really do anything without the other in the graveyard. So you'll find yourself sending Plague a lot for the Synchro plays, or Necrogardna just to protect the Dark Greffer, so you can use it again. hopefully after drawing a Vayu Sirocco. Spirit Reaper is one that not everyone's playing. I think that one's getting more popular as well. But Spirit Reaper is just great on offense and defense. So if you're ahead, poking in with a Spirit Reaper, either forcing out removal on this card or plucking a card from their hand, those are both good scenarios. And then on the defense, obviously, it can't be destroyed by battle, so this can just save you a turn or multiple turns until you get something going, like, oh, okay, now I can tribute this for Caius, or I can synchro with it, or it just saved me time to draw a Dark Greffer so I can set up a bigger play. Really nice, versatile card right there. Not too much to say about the spells, really. I am playing the Charger Light Brigade instead of a second Mega Hamster. And the more I think about it, I think you should actually play Charger Light Brigade in a mill deck before even the first copy of Mega Hamster. So the 1/1 feels nice. Opening this often just feels better than opening a Mega Hamster because it's a monster heavy deck already. But being able to go charge mill 3 and then make whatever monster summon you want to do, a lot of time is better than, okay, do I want to set a hamster or one of these other monsters? So I think the charge is actually just better, but you can't run more than one charge, so you play hamster, which is nice with your Caius plays, of course. As I said, the traps are pretty standard. I opted to main both Royal Oppressions because Vayu is the deck that can abuse this card the most. It can make special summons with Vayu under Oppression, and they can't really stop that. So I figure let's just embrace the fact that this is the best Oppression deck and just main both Oppressions. But like I said, you can side an Oppression and maybe main the Chaos Sorcerer for a more powerful, aggressive play that can also out, synchros and all that. So you do have options there. Sideboard, I think people are moving away from this card in Edison in general because no one really plays machines, so you're not often making a Fortress Dragon with this. I still like this card quite a bit. Just siding it in against decks that it can beat over their monsters. So Alias and Black Wings, things like that, this can just attack over. And if they're going to bottomless it or deprison it or use their Kalut or Honest to protect their monster, you're fine with that because this was just your special summon. You haven't committed your normal summon yet, so you bait out removal with this, whatever removal they might have, and then main phase 2 you get to make your actual play, your actual normal summon, whether that's Dark Greffer, Armageddon Knight, or whatever else, Caius even. And then when they don't have the removal, obviously it just does what you'd expect it to do. It's a 2100 attacks over their monster, so it plus the ones that way. So it's either a 1-for-1 that I enjoy, like this basically becomes a piece of removal for their removal spell, or it beats over their monster, which is even better. It is also really good with the Gale, I've found. You special summon this, normal summon the Gale, half their guy, and then you can make a level 8 synchro after halving their guy. That play's actually pretty powerful. 2DD Crow. That's not much to say about that. Fossil Dynas are interesting. You can play something like Vanity's Fiend instead. I found having to rely on tribute summons in Vayu can get tricky because you're probably keeping both your Caius in, usually. So having 4 tribute summons can honestly be a bit of an ask for this deck, especially if you are playing 1 hamster instead of 2. This card's excellent. I like this card. I like playing this card in most decks before I even play a single Nobleman of Crossout, because often the things that you were going to Nobleman, you'd be just as happy mind controlling. Raikou, you don't want to Nobleman that and then lose your Raikous. Or Hamster, same deal. But if you mind control one of those and get to use its effect, it's basically a plus, and then you can still synchro with it. So I think mind control is great. And then of course you can take Judgment Dragons, Dark Arm Dragons, stuff like that, or just a tuner or a non-tuner and make a synchro. You can also take Absolute Zero. It won't be able to attack, but you'll be able to attack through Absolute Zero. Like, that's not like the greatest play in the world, but it comes up where I can push for game through this Absolute Zero just by mind controlling it. Compulse we've talked about before. It is absolutely for Absolute Zero, Stardust Dragon, stuff like that. Also, it can be a really good tempo swing when you are targeting their set for the turn. So they set a Raikou or a Hamster or whatever else, and you just compulse it. They basically didn't take their turn a lot of the times. So that can be really powerful. Deck Dev I'm still playing for now, although the decks it hits have been getting less popular. Fairies is a deck it's very good against, and that deck doesn't see as much play. It is quite good against frogs, especially if you can pull it off before they set up. If you can flip this turn 1, it's super powerful. But even frogs are seeing less play. I would say probably more play than fairies, but they're seeing less play than they used to, so you might not need this currently. Dust Tornado's fantastic right now. I mean, it's probably going to always be a good card in Edison, but the fact that it pairs up so well against things that run a ton of back row, like Hero Beat, for example, or Black Wings, being able to get rid of the Whirlwind is fantastic, but then just sniping an Icarus attack or something is also pretty good. Pulling the Rug is something that I think is probably better right now than Deck Dev, because Pulling the Rug, yes, is good against Caius, obviously. It's good. It can do things against Ryza and Swap Frog that was normal summon, stuff like that. Pulling the Rug is really good. But you can side this in against other matchups, which is, I like cards that can be sided in against multiple matchups. So Pulling the Rug can actually be used against something like Diva Heroes if you're going first, because it stops Stratos, which is pretty major. That might have been their only monster, and in that case, Pulling the Rug is crazy. If they don't have any monsters, they're not going to win. And then obviously it can negate Deep Sea Diva, so pretty good. The one Starlight Road is for things like Black Wings and some of the stuff you'll see less often, but it's really good against, obviously, is like Lightsworn. So, I mean, I feel like you almost have to have a Starlight Road in your main deck or side deck in a lot of decks this format, just because you have to have that threat against like Icarus attack mainly. They have to at least think you have Starlight Road. So if they see one, whether it resolved or not, they've got to play around Starlight Road for the entire match at that point. The reason I would say don't main it is because obviously there's other matchups than Black Wings, right? So there's matchups where all it's really stopping is like Heavy Storm, Torrent, Mirror Force, and when it's only stopping those 3 cards, I don't think it's quite worth it. But also, maining 2 oppressions with this can be awkward. Obviously, you can set it up so you're not, they're not conflicting with each other as much, but they do, in fact, conflict if you are forced to oppression before you Starlight Road. But yeah, that is the profile. Hopefully you got some ideas from this. I think I will be making some changes. I saw that there was a big event that Vayu actually won on Saturday, and he was citing, I think, To My Body as a shields to stop things like Icarus attack, and I really like that card. Actually, it's live as soon as you draw it, so it is better than Starlight in that way. And also, sometimes games 2 and 3, Blackwing players will try to play around your Starlight Road by only targeting one of your cards with their Icarus attack, and then they'll target something like their Legacy of Yatagarasu or something like that, and you wouldn't be able to Starlight Road, but you can My Body. So I think that's pretty cool. But as always, thank you so much for watching.